All right, so I'm here at Blackstrap for part 2 of the Ripmo versus Jeffsy test, and I'm gonna ride a couple of trails alternating between the Jeffsy and the Ripmo and just kind of see how they feel. So I'm gonna ride Flo Creek, which is very flowy, and Happy Cats, which is a little bit more technical, here at Blackstrap on both bikes. And I'll be, just kind of trying to think about how they feel different, how much fun I'm having on each of them, and we'll do a bit of a comparison based on that, not so much based on speed. I may look at the speed on Strava or compare the camera times or something like that, but that's not going to be the primary thing that I'm comparing. If you want the fastest bike between these two, it's going to be the Ripmo AF, I'm pretty sure, based on what I've already done. But fastest doesn't necessarily mean funnest, so let's go see which one is more fun to ride on these trails.
The first run was with the Jeffsy on Flo Creek. Like I said in the intro, what I'm really trying to figure out here is which bike is more fun to ride. And on this kind of trail, the Jeffsy really puts up a fight. It's just a flat-out fun bike. It feels snappy and playful. In fact, on this ride, it actually felt lighter than the Ripmo AF. To be clear, it isn't. Like I said in the previous Ripmo vs. Jeffsy video, these two bikes both weighed exactly 35.2 pounds with pedals in my kitchen scale test. But the Jeffsy has a little less travel and a slightly shorter wheelbase, and I think that's what makes it feel light on a trail like this. It's worth pointing out that this ride was super fun despite the fact that I was doing this with really worn out brakes. Riding the Ripmo and the Jeffsy one after the other really drove home how overdue the Jeffsy was for some new brake pads, and I have since replaced them. But in this video, you're seeing the worn out pads Jeffsy. Luckily, any version of the Jeffsy pretty much rips. It's a cool enough bike that even the local wildlife came out to see if they could sneak a peek.
There's a deer. Hey, buddy. Sorry. That's fun. Impressions of that was really fun.
Okay, now it's time for the same trail on the Ripmo AF. And it was pretty immediately clear that this bike just wants to blast downhill. It feels really planted, and at times it almost feels like it has an engine of its own, holding speed longer than you'd expect and turning every little trail feature and roller into a speed burst.
The Ripmo is just charging. I can tell you right now, it is absolutely the faster bike doing them side by side, because I'm not trying to pin it. I really haven't pedaled much, to be perfectly honest with you. Probably using the brakes more than I did on the Jeffsy, just to kind of keep it in line.
If there's a downside to this, it's that all that speed seems to shake things loose sometimes. The rattling you heard in my last Ripmo video turned out to be coming mostly from the screws in the bottle cage, and this time it's coming from the cap over the air valve of the shock. But it's not a big deal, and nothing a little bit of Loctite wouldn't fix. After riding Flo Creek, I felt like it was pretty much a deadlock. Both bikes are fun in different ways. The Jeffsy more playful, the Ripmo fulfilling that need for speed.
I can tell you with 100% certainty, the Ripmo feels faster. I would say the Ripmo feels much faster.
To get a head-to-head comparison on tech, I went to Happy Cats.
Oh, goodness. The brakes are just, yeah, I really needed to replace the brakes on this bike.
Okay, yes, I should have put new brake pads on. It's much better now. Anyway, locals might be wondering why I chose this trail instead of Raven, and the short answer is convenience. Convenience and not wanting to do that climb twice in a row in blistering humidity. Anyway, the Jeffsy might not be quite as confident as the Ripmo in chunky terrain, but it can definitely hold its own. The issues you'll see in the videos of this trail have more to do with me making mistakes and not knowing the trail as well as I know Flo Creek.
Ooh. Ooh. That was gnarly. All right, so a little climbing here.
Both bikes are clearly capable of absolutely shredding it. If I noticed any shortcoming with the Jeffsy, it was maybe that the front end gets a little floatier on steep climbs, but the difference wasn't very big.
Ooh. Gnarly, I think. Oh, that's actually that's not bad. It's not what I was remembering. Oh, Jesus. That's a big rut. Really had to get out back quick on that one. Whew. Is that the trail? This is where I always get lost. Ooh.
The final run of the day was on the Ripmo AF, so I guess now's the time to spoil the surprise. Neither of these bikes really won or lost. I know that sounds like an absurd cop-out, but after riding them both back to back, I couldn't really say either one was more fun or clearly better. The Ripmo is faster and slightly more planted through chunky terrain.
Well, I screwed that up on the Jeffsy, but even on the Ripmo, that's tough.
The Jeffsy feels lighter and springier while still being able to handle some gnar. I'll be honest, coming into this test, I was expecting the Ripmo AF to just win. And if your dream is to race enduro, then it definitely does. But for an average or below average trail rider like myself, they're both great bikes. I don't think you can really go wrong. So, which bike am I selling? The answer might be both. Ironically, over the course of this testing, I actually learned more about myself as a rider than I did about the bikes. And as a result, I'm thinking about getting a bike that might be more of a perfect fit for what I want to do. I'll get more into that later when, well, if I can actually find one. For now, though, it's the Ripmo AF that's going up for sale. It's not a bad bike. In fact, it's a f***ing great bike. But I'd rather hold on to the less valuable of the two while I search for my dream bike. If you're interested in buying it, I'm going to be posting it in the 207 MTB classifieds first, but ultimately it'll end up on Pink Bike if it doesn't get picked up by somebody there. Hit subscribe because I've got a video upcoming that I think might be my most important video so far. It might not be next week's video, but it also might be. I gotta see what my schedule looks like. Anyway, until then, I hope you have a chance to get outside and ride, and I'll see you next week.
Kind of.